but I don't see. Oh, there he is.
He's the one that looks like Scott.
I'm the one with my name on the bottom.
Yeah, right.
I do see that Kurt is up in your attic again, right above you.
Yep.
Not on my screen.
Not on mine either. That's Jennifer up there.
He's on the, oh.
I think he's just right behind that wall. Isn't that right, Kurt?
It is. It's really fun to go down 2 a.m., raid the refrigerator. I try to eat stuff so he doesn't notice it's actually gone.
Hi, Kim. Where'd she go? I saw her a minute ago. There she is.
Hello.
There's Ray. Hi, Paul. There's Jessica. She's going to keep her picture off, I think. Oh, Allison.
I got it.
Amber, did you see Anna?
Yeah. Or not Anna.
Oh, great.
Sorry, just
Can you hear me now?
Anna
Is that right?
is in our.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Good.
Yeah.
We can hear you, Ray.
Great. Thanks.
Where's Anna?
There she is. Mark, we get to see your face this time. That's nice. How you doing? We don't hear your voice, but
I have to unmute there. I'm doing good, thank you.
great. Thanks.
I just moved another computer in here so it would work.
Oh, there's Dennis. It said Dennis was here, but I couldn't see you. But there's lots of faces. Hi, Dennis.
Yeah, hi. Everybody looks good?
Well, I think we should go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I think so. It's about that time.
Do you want to kind of set us up here, Allison?
Yeah, welcome. Looks like
some
we're
Zoom
all
protocol.
here on Zoom together. We've done this a fair number of times, so you all know the drill. Keep your videos on when we're discussing, but most of this meeting is going to be presentation heavy. So if you'd like to turn off your videos at that time, you're welcome to. And we'd ask that you keep yourself muted unless you're talking or chiming in. And members of the public, we're glad that you're here and observing. We are recording this meeting, so it will be posted online for posterity and for additional information if the community wants to see some of the things that we're talking about with designs today. So aside from that, I think over to you, Doug, to take care of the fun parts.
I think we decided that just kind of for the record to make sure everything's clear, we're going to do just like in the Concord School grade school days. We're going to do a roll call. So I'm going to call out names and just for the record let the group know you're here. So let's start with Ron Campbell.
I'm here.
All right. I have no idea what order these names are in, so don't think you're if you get towards the bottom of the list, don't think you've forgotten. It's just the way they fall. Mark Elliott.
Here.
Dennis Hickey.
Here.
Kim Parman.
Here.
Rose Ojeda. Rose, I didn't see her here yet. Anna Hosley.
Here.
Michael Schmier.
Present.
Christy Switzer.
Here.
Michael Newgard.
Here.
Grover Bornefeld.
Present.
Jan Lindstrom.
Hello.
Me, Doug Jones, I'm here. Shonda Wild.
Here.
Welcome, Shonda.
Thank
Paul
you.
Bundy.
Here.
Jerry Bukowski.
Here.
All right. just about everybody. Good. Who else do we have
Rose.
going? Catherine?
Here.
I joined, I just arrived. Doug, this
Oh, Rose,
I
welcome.
was going to say, I see Rose.
Just in time.
Mm.
Catherine, we have some NCPRD people out here, I think.
Yeah, let me introduce the staff that's here. We've got a variety of people. We've got Mitzi Olson, our library director, Scott Archer, our NCPRD director, Jessica Boderin, our admin specialist. She is from NCPRD. She's taking notes for us. Tracy Grambush is here. She is from BCS, financial analyst. Amber Johnson's helping on tech. She's from Public and Government Affairs. Laura Zentner couldn't be here tonight. She's at a budget meeting, as well as Commissioner Savas is at a budget meeting. Commissioner Savas said he would try to join near the end of the meeting if possible. So that's our side, and I think I'll throw it over to Jennifer to introduce the consultants.
Okay, so tonight we have pretty much the same team we had last week. Myself, Jennifer Hoffman, project manager, Jim Calvalich, design partner, OPSIS, Ray Johnston with Johnston Architects, library specialist, and Kurt Lango with Lango Hansen Landscape Architecture. We were hoping to have Ken Ballard here, who's our recreation and operations specialist. He is ill today, so he is not going to be joining tonight. So that's on our side.
All right, so basically tonight is just, well, not just, tonight is part 2 of our presentation from the design team, going over all the different design alternatives, breaking down to some detail for this Concord property project. So we'll be absorbing a whole lot of information tonight, and then next week will be time for lots of discussion. Next week, the next 2 weeks, Q&A, the design team, I believe all of them will be there, as well as some others who might be able to answer some questions for us, because there will be lots of that. This is being recorded, as was mentioned, so if you feel like you need to review some things and go over that, you can find the link online, or maybe maybe Catherine can email it out if anybody's curious. Get in touch with her if it's not as easy to find. I kind of had to dig for it to find the last one. Just the goal is to, at this point, we've got still the 7 different alternatives. The goal at this point is to narrow it down to 3 so that we can put those 3 out to the public and see what feedback we get from them. So we'll that's our end goal at this point after our next 2 meetings of Q&A. There are no meeting summary notes for this meeting, or for last week, I should say, since it was kind of pretty much just a straight up presentation. But they'll put all that out after today's meeting. We'll lump it all together and we'll look those over with next week's meeting. So I think at this point, we're kind of ready to go forward. Just bear in mind, there's lots of details in this presentation deck, lots of details, but some of the details that you might see are not firm. So you kind of need to fill in some blanks and kind of flesh some things out so it looks realistic. But Jennifer was kind of explaining to us that don't get caught up in saying, oh, well, this looks like that and this is there. There's a lot of that can be flexed as things go on. So we're not, they were just kind of more just trying to give us a sense of space and place and how things are going to shape up. But a lot of that stuff is long ways from being planned out in terms of blueprints and that kind of thing. There are no blueprints at this stage. Am I right, Jennifer?
Yeah, you're correct.
Great.
We don't even make blueprints anymore, so.
Oh, well, then see, I was right in so many ways.
I'm teasing, no. Yeah, and thank you, Doug. That's a really good point. And I think it's really important before we get started back into looking at more detail in the layouts, that everybody keep in mind this is a very early stage. We're in the master planning stage. This is the stage where we're testing the program. We're looking at the factors that are influencing the site. We're collecting feedback. It's part of the design process that we put something together, we get it out for everybody to look at, we take comments, we do it again. It's a process that we go through. And I don't know if you remember early on, we had a slide where we talked about the design process being an iterative process. And it's really big in the beginning. We're trying to collect everything. We get a lot of feedback. And as we move forward, we get more information and things start to focus in. So I just want to put out there to everybody, because you do have new packets now to look at. We're in a very early stage. We're looking at volumes and massing. We have some renderings in there for you to look at. That's more to give you all an idea of the flavor of what the space feels like. It isn't set in stone. It isn't designed fully yet. This is a way we are collecting feedback from you all. Obviously, this process, there will be conversations that come out of this process that will influence the next iteration for us. So I just want to put that out there, that no one feels like things have all been figured out and there's no room for conversation and the process of change. So that's where we're starting today. We last week had a chance to go through all the site schemes with Kurt and Jim, and this week we're going to focus on the building layouts. Mostly Jim and Ray presenting those schemes, and we've got a little more finalized information on cost and square footage, and so we'll be able to go through that, as well as looking at the opportunities and challenges of the site. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jim, and we'll start running through each of the schemes. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them, look through them before the presentation.
And a quick reminder, folks, I think most people were here last week, but we're going to run through the presentation. If you do have questions, feel free to pop them into the chat if it helps you just to kind of get them out. Jennifer will be monitoring that if there's something that can be quickly clarified or included into the presentation. But for the most part, we'll be taking those questions and getting ready for the next meeting, which will be devoted to Q&A. You're also very welcome, and thank you for the people who have already sent questions in from last week. We'd love to hear your questions and thoughts if you're writing them down or taking note of them throughout the presentation, but we are not anticipating to have Q&A time this evening. So use the chat, use your notes, send an email, and then we can deep dive into your questions next time.
Great, thanks, Allison. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's maybe go to the next image, Jennifer, but it's exciting to now have phase 2 of our presentation and the opportunity to, let me get some off here. The opportunity to talk through not just the site as was presented last week, but really drill more into the specific layouts within the freestanding library, or whether there are additions to the Concord building, and how one might think about the program relationships within the Concord building, not only on level 1, but level 2. That's really going to be the focus today. And just as a reminder, there's 2 options, 1A, 1B, that are freestanding library options that include a gym addition onto the community center. And both those options, the Concord School would be utilized for strictly community center recreation. And then option 2 is an addition that would be for the library to the north, as well as a gymnasium to the east. I gotta get rid of, oh, there we go. And then 2 other addition options that we explored are options 3 and 4. One with the library edition and the other with a recreation edition. And then 2 variations on no additions at all. So just want to take a moment to just refresh ourselves on the context for the project, and just refamiliarize ourselves with the exterior of the Concord School. All brick building, has a really very prominent architectural feature, which is the monumental stair that leads up to the main entry. Also with that is the challenge of providing accessibility, universal accessibility, really at grade. And as you're all aware, the lower level of the school is about 2.5 feet below the existing grade. You also look up with kind of a really kind of a sweeping vantage point up to the front facade of the building. There's kind of a vertical grain to the windows as well. So when you look at the very initial massing studies, that's something that we're at least trying to have a dialogue with. The south elevation, which is in the right-hand corner, and then the 1948 edition, which really seamlessly integrates into the building that faces to the north. Also, some topography. That the top right image helps you, I think, kind of visualize how the landscape, sloping landscape, wraps around the addition and what is now kind of a service court. Also, looking at the interior of the building, something we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, but the 1936 original building, that main corridor has a lot of historic features, including the administrative area that has some really nice windows and casework. The stairs that are at both the north and south end of that hallway has some really beautiful windows, and just the wainscot around it. Some real character that is something I think we want to be sensitive to when we are looking at adding and modifying the plan. And then, of course, probably one of the more important features of the building on the interior is the gymnasium space. It's kind of the great community room, as we all experienced with the open house. And for those who are playing volleyball and basketball, you know, that gymnasium it has a lot of character to it. A really nice wainscot. The proscenium has a lot of distinguishing character to it. The high window, clear story windows that sit above the wainscot bring in a lot of great natural light. As you all know, it's a great multi-purpose space, but it also has some real limitations functionally in terms of providing the adequate dimensions and width for basketball, volleyball courts, and then having spectator seating is a challenge as well, with the minimal setbacks from the court to the walls. Another kind of interesting part of the school is just a history that has constantly been the imprint of the students over time. Some great tile work and paintings and artifacts like this, I think we want to honor and find a way to integrate those into the revitalized Concord project. So now we want to go through in a little more detail the design options. We'll start with option 1A. I'm not going to go into detail on the site plan. Kurt did such a great job before. I think you're all very familiar with that. You can go to the next slide, but I think one of the key attributes of this particular layout is the fact that there's 2 parking lots and a drive that connects them. This particular layout of parking would depend on having an easement to connect to Olive Avenue. It also means the library and the community center are separated by the parking and the access road that connects between them. This was kind of seemed like a logical place to begin thinking about a freestanding library, in that it does preserve the view corridors from Concord up to the Concord School. And the parking that's in the southwest corner has kind of a equidistant relationship to both the community center and the library. In this particular option, we are going to take a look at creating an accessible entry to the Concord School where currently the monumental stairs are located.
So walking through the library, you can see that parking lot in the southwest that Jim described, and you enter the vestibule from that southeast corner of the building. It's very simple, almost a square. Upon entry, you have all the popular materials. If you turn around and look to your right, you'd see the children's area, which kind of takes advantage of the view off into the park and the plaza to the east. And then if you look straight ahead, the service point, there are the computers, a small conference room in that area. And then the general collection is really in the center west portion of the square. Lounge and study seating are distributed around the perimeter with the teens in that southwest corner. So they have a place they can watch what's going on and be far enough away from the service point, but still fairly observable. And then we've scattered around some other little counseling rooms or small conference rooms to help articulate this space. The workroom and restrooms are towards the north part of the square.
And then in this particular layout, you can see there's an entry plaza to the library and then a way to walk across and kind of a very open kind of linear plaza that takes you to the center entry point to the Concord School.
You know, that's an important point. These two freestanding libraries both rely on meeting spaces in the Concord School. So as you compare them to some of the addition solutions, you'll see that that's quite a significant difference. And I think in the freestanding solutions, as they evolve, should they be part of the final three, really thinking of strategies to make sure you can have story hour in the children's area, for example, or balance that fact that the large meeting facility is really across that driveway and plaza in another building.
So this is the ground floor plan of the Concord School. And it indicates the center entry. We'd be creating a vestibule, a lounge area, and a community resource room that would be just to the left of the entry. The kind of purple blue color to the right of the entry is the reception for the community center. It's also the reception area for the NCPRD offices. One of the things that we realized working on this with the NCPRD folks is that if we can create a reception area, a welcome point to the building, and that can also serve as the point of entry into the NCPRD offices, that would be operationally much more efficient than having a separate staff at a welcome desk independent from the offices. This particular layout, though, does provide all of the needs for the NCPRD offices in terms of open office space, private offices, some of the break rooms and kitchen workroom areas, and some small meeting rooms. And as you come in, there's a corridor that leads to the east that takes you past locker rooms, restrooms. Those are functions that sit underneath the existing gymnasium, and then circulation that would take you to the new gym space. We're separating in this layout the access to the recreation functions from the community meeting room spaces. So as you go to the north down the corridor, there's a large meeting room in the corner, and there's and then the circulation corridor that leads into the 1948 edition, where we actually have a little more floor-to-floor height, as you're probably aware of. That's where we're locating the community meeting space. And you might be aware that currently there's a corridor right down the middle and classrooms on either side. So we're opening up one structural bearing wall and moving that over to the what is now the south wall of the existing classrooms. And that allows us to create the proper aspect ratio and width to the community meeting rooms. Those are rooms that could be subdivided with movable partitions. There would be a storage area down towards the west. And then at the east end would be a kitchen, a catering kitchen, warming kitchen. Also another small classroom space up in the corner, creating a kind of an open circulation zone where there could be some casual seating, lounge area. So if you have an event with a couple hundred people or so, there's plenty of room for them to break out into a nice social area. And by the way, just to clarify, the abbreviation RR stands for restrooms. That's just a general kind of block. We haven't laid out all the toilet fixtures and all that type of detail, but just acknowledging we're going to need a good area for restrooms. Next to the restrooms, there is an elevator as well. So that provides direct accessibility up to the second floor. And then we're retaining the two existing stairs that are at the north and the south ends of the building, which are really kind of signature features of the school. Let me go up to the next floor. On this level, above the community room, in that wider bay dimension, we're putting a couple of multi-use activity spaces. They would have wood floor, sprung floor, perhaps some restroom area that might be at the east end of that corridor, a lounge area and windows that could overlook the new gymnasium that's below, the gym addition. We would be utilizing the elevator to help negotiate that 2.5 foot elevation change. Currently, there's a ramp, as you're aware of. And the idea is to take better advantage of that real estate and to have the elevator have just a partial stop to provide that accessibility. The existing gym space would be retained. It's really a multi-purpose space. It could be used for large group exercise, pickleball, volleyball, basketball, pickup games, and the stage would be retained so it can be utilized for cultural events as well. And then along the west-facing bar of the building, the existing rooms are really kind of more or less intact. Some new demising walls. There would be arts and crafts, a makerspace, multi-use classroom, a teen area, another multi-use classroom, more restrooms, a mechanical support area. Also, above a mechanical addition behind the stage, we would be providing some additional gym storage. That's really important. Currently, one has to walk across the hallway to get to gym storage. So we're trying to make sure that that's convenient. And then, you know, you can only understand so much of the building layout just by plan. And so we thought it was important to at least do some initial massing studies that would indicate both the gym addition to the Concord School as well as the freestanding library. And you'll see really in most of the library massing studies, we've created a high bay zone, kind of indicating where there might be the more primary main reading room, and then a lower volume that might wrap around it. So in a very simple way, just starting to suggest that there's probably, it's not just one volume, but there may be some stepping of the volumes to create some different character to the library experience. And then the fact that there may be larger areas of windows and then areas where we have smaller windows that might go into, more of a solid wall context, and perhaps that might have more of a vertical kind of rhythm that starts to at least make some reference back to the Concord School. In the massing, you can also see the new vestibule entry into where the center of the building where the monumental stair used to be. This is just a little bit of a close-up of what that might feel like from a pedestrian approach to the new entry. And then just a little more lower pedestrian level views of the stepped massing, the library. It sits grade-wise quite a ways below the existing Concord School. The other thing to bear in mind is we are modeling some of the topography. There's about an 8-foot, 9-foot elevation change across the library from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. There's a pretty significant slope. So that's something that we took into consideration when we were also developing our cost estimate.
So for each of the options, we'll be showing you some interior views. And as Jennifer was saying early on, these are really conceptual in nature, but we can't resist, starting to really explore the spatial qualities of these different shaped buildings. In each image, there's a diagram in the lower right, which shows a little arrow, and that is the viewpoint. So for example, in this one, the view is from the service point desk. And if you look in the foreground left there, that's really what you would see if you were the librarian standing behind that desk. You'd see the desk itself in your foreground, and then you'd see the children's area to the left with the Concord School beyond. You're kind of looking through the vestibule there. And then to the right, you see the computers, and beyond them, the collection. And in the distance there, not too great a distance, but you see the south wall and the big oak trees that exist to the southeast, or southwest, sorry. Also, we've started trying to think of ways to really make these solutions all work very well with natural light and daylighting and things like that. And there are many layers to that effort, but the first one is really looking at some of the form aspects that Jim mentioned, such as that clear story there that brings light into the middle of what is a fairly large square. So it's important to find solutions that do that and that give the reading room a nice quality as a public reading room space. This image is taken from the lounge area along the west face of the building. So you're really seeing those oak trees on the west property line to the right. Looking straight ahead, you see the idea of a very glassy conference room, or actually those are a couple counseling rooms. And to the left, you see the primary collection. So the primary collection is really ringed by lounge and study seating. And then, although this is afternoon and you're not seeing direct light from the clear story there, you can imagine the effect of that glazing and how that'll bring light into the middle of the collection.
This next image suggests an approach to doing a gym addition onto the Concord School with the idea that it would kind of nestle into the topography with higher clear story windows to the east and south. Also bearing in mind that we don't want to block daylight coming into the existing Concord School. So perhaps there's some skylights between the roof of the addition and the Concord School. You can go to the next image. So moving on to option 1B, as you know, we wanted to also take a look at an option where the parking might be contiguous along the west edge and be able to have the library and community center be much more closely related without having to walk across a access road. In which case then we're also taking a look at a new entry point to the community center. That's kind of in the knuckle of the L and much closer to what would be the entry to the library. And the shaping of the library itself, I kind of made reference to it our last week's meeting, some of that diagonal geometry. It's just kind of an initial just gesture to say, like, we really want to open up as much as possible the view corridor to the existing Concord School.
So this solution stretches that shape out into kind of a double square and pulls it next to the school with the parking, as Jim said, wrapping around to the west and north. The yellow there, the entry vestibule, is kind of a loggia that we're imagining maybe opens up, so there could be activities that happen in the plaza, and the connection between the library and the Concord School is enhanced. It's much closer. Uses can flow between them more easily. When you enter, the straight ahead is the service point, and all the popular materials are right there. The teens we've placed a little bit to the south of the entry, so we think we can probably make it an appealing place for them where they feel like they can observe things from the center of activity, but maybe not be too observed. Straight ahead, across to the west, is the children's area. So the service point has good proximity to that and good visibility. And those oak trees on the west property line are then shading that children's area, which might be a real nice effect. And then looking south, farther down into the library, the popular or the main collection in the center, and then once again, lounge seating and study seating, occupying the perimeter and taking advantage of the views and the natural light.
So this next
the workroom in this one is
yeah. So
that one last thing. The workroom is to the north, like it was in the last one, and that allows for probably a pretty nice entry point and place where you could drop your books and the book drop, things like that, near the entry loggia.
So this plan indicates a new approach to the entry, which locates it kind of in the corner. When you come in the vestibule, there's a community resource room, a lounge area. The NCPRD offices are stretched out facing west, with arts and crafts room that might be located down at the end of the corridor, perhaps. The gray zone towards the east on the opposite side of the hallway is really kind of a support zone where we have storage, the restrooms, locker rooms, mechanical functions, which actually work particularly well underneath the existing gymnasium, where we do have some sound isolation issues of sound transfer coming down through that gym floor. From the welcome desk, you can look straight up to a corridor that takes you to the locker rooms and directly into that gym addition. Community room spaces similar to the previous option. And then we'll go up to the next floor. This is very similar to what we showed previously in the 1A option. So I'm not going to spend time on this. You'll have to excuse us if we do move through some of this a little quickly. Just want to make sure we get through it and also have adequate time for your questions with Allison. So let's go to the massing. The 3D massing, one of the ideas here was just if there's a higher volume, maybe it's a little bit more to the north, and then a lower volume that might extend out to the south, with perhaps even sloping roofs to even open up more the view corridors to the Concord School. That was really what was kind of driving this. And then to have larger windows perhaps that open up towards the south and the Concord Road. Go to the next image. These are just a little more closer up, the approach down below coming up Concord. As you're just passing the driveway access, you can start to see how the whole entry and the facade of the Concord School starts to open up. Go to the next image. Ray?
So here you can see this is again from very close to the service point, looking towards the south. Similar effect with the presence of the oak trees, the clear story bringing in light into the center of a significantly large space, the loggia or vestibule to the left, and the general collection in the center there. And then the next view is moving over into the children's area and looking back towards the vestibule. On the left is the service point in the distance there, and on the right, just under the clear story, is where the teens would be. You can see it'll be fairly open and airy, pretty nice volume.
And then this would also have the gym addition as well. So the next few options we're going to show are all really options 2, 3, and 4 are all about integrating the library into the community center and then doing additions that accommodate the program. This particular option has the library addition to the north, and then similar to as previously shown, a new gym addition to the east. Go to the next plan. I'll kind of maybe just start with, and then Ray will kind of pick up, but this has a very, very similar entry to what we showed in option 1B. The difference is as you come in, it really opens up to a lounge area that would be in front of the library function. And maybe Ray, you might want to take it from there.
Yeah, we are getting increasingly excited by this. Just there are a lot of potentials. We imagine that the library entry could really be a sliding glass wall, so it opened up and really welcomed interaction with that lounge area and the lobby. At the same time, though, I think you would get into that point where the word lobby is, and you'd see the service point, so you'd really be aware of the library function to your left, even from the vestibule doors. So entering that rust-colored reddish library zone, you have the some computers and the history area on your left, service point on your right, quick access, popular materials, more or less all around that area, right in the center and to the east. And then the general collection in the center, teens to the left, which would be to the east, and to the right would be, to the west would be, I'm sorry, reverse those, to the east would be small meeting rooms, and the children's area nestling into and wrapping around the corner in the northeast. That leaves the western facade really as lounge and seating. I do want to mention that all of these have very similar, there might be minor variations, but they all satisfy our program areas and various functions in detail very well. And as we complete our process, we'll confirm that as well. This solution also has the ability to have a second staff entry from the east. You can see that walkway coming down from Spalding and the access there. Yeah. And the book drop that would be close to the entry and in the workroom as well.
Has the book drop, and then the Friends area would be part of the lounge. That could probably be outside the secure area. And then there's also a accessible courtyard that can be accessed just near the service point. It would be enveloped within a landscape zone, so it would be a secure environment. Then we can go up to the second floor. This locates the community rooms up on the second floor, kind of in some ways a more ideal relationship than having recreation space above the community room. They'll get some views out. There's a lower roof that connects the library addition to the 1948 building. And so those community meeting room windows will not be obstructed at all. In fact, they'll even have views into the library as well. The gymnasium space is preserved. In the the northwest corner, there's a reception area for recreation staff. So we do have NCPRD staff up here, programmers for recreation activities that will be able to monitor what's happening up on this floor level. There's a couple of activity spaces as well that are in the southwest corner, and then a teen room. You can go to the next images. This is indicating just that kind of beginning of massing study. You can see that lower roof shape between the addition and the larger reading room of the 1948, or excuse me, of the main library reading room. There's also a series of stairs that Kurt talked about as well that ascend up towards the east. There's an 11-foot grade change. So the back portion of the library reading room would have higher clear story windows, but a large part of it would be kind of nestled into the earth. That's why we're also locating some of those meeting rooms there as well. And then the gymnasium, this is just showing how that could nestle into the landscape embankment on that east side of the property. You can go to the next image, just a little bit more of the close-up views, the entry vestibule to the community center and library, kind of creating perhaps a dialogue with that by having a more open, glassy corner. So when you're walking in that vestibule, it's kind of clear that you're going to end up in that room. And also putting the library a little bit more on display there, and separating maybe more of the solid brick walls or whatever the material might be of the addition from the existing brick of the Concord School.
So here, as you enter, this is just inside the entry to the library. The service point is just behind the observer on the right. And you're looking towards the north. On the right, you see the small conference rooms and that lower ceiling area that Jim mentioned that would have those conference rooms and part of the children's area nestled in there. And then that kind of buff colored wall in the distance is that children's area wrapping around in the corner, northeast corner of the building. To your left is the teens area, so they'd be in a good place to watch the comings and goings. Straight ahead, the general collection, and beyond it to the left, middle distance, there is the study and lounge area. And then the next view is moving over to that study and lounge area and looking back towards, on the right, the service point and that gasket between the Concord School and the addition. And then the clear story above that, remember, we're tucked into the hillside, so there's that lower zone with some popular materials on the right, and then the small conference rooms, and then the children's area nestled in to that cozier spot in the corner with the clear stories up above. And then this view is looking back from the edge. Really, you're in children's area looking through the general collection back towards the entry, the lounge and study seating to the right, the that lower ceiling cozy space to the left. And then we're pretty fond of the way this library would really honor the Concord School and really make that a feature of what you see when you're in the library. That's what you're seeing beyond there.
This would also have the gym addition. So this option 2 is unique in that there's a significant recreation gym addition as well as a major library addition to the Concord School that really has kind of, the library edition has a kind of a more extroverted public identity versus the next option we're going to show here, option 3. It has a little different character. where there's an addition for the library, but it's kind of nestled into the southeast corner. It does have the public identity and address from Concord. As you drive past the school, you would have views of that addition. But it's a little more introverted character. It's kind of nestled into the sloping topography that wraps around the site. You go to the next one. The entry here is very similar to option 2. Probably the openness into the library may not be quite as open as the option 2 was. There's still, the doors could be sliding doors that open up, but still a very, very, inviting entry to the library as well.
Then as you enter, there is book drop and workroom on your left, and then you enter with popular materials, self-checkout, all those sorts of things, the Friends sale area in that front, and the service point is just beyond. Beyond the service point are additional popular materials, history, the computer lab, and then as you approach the service point on your right, you're really seeing the primary collection. And looking down the circulation spine of the library, you're seeing some lounge seating and quick access kind of seating on your left. And then beyond that, the children's area on your left. And looking all the way down the length of the addition, lounge and study areas towards the left, which is the east, and the teens nestled into the southwest corner of this addition. There's a service point down there too, real close to the cursor. So in the next view, I think it's in the next view, maybe it's not. No, it's in the interior view. I'll point it out in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, we could just continue up. This plan is actually very similar to the prior option from NCPRD's perspective. They do have the existing gym that would be retained, but obviously no new gym space. That's the main difference. And this is interesting, actually, that from the meeting room lounge area, you would have overviews directly down into the reading room of the library. So the community meeting space would be visually directly connected to the library itself. Go to the next. Massing showing how there might be a higher volume as it meets the existing gym and the 1948 edition. And that allows you to get good daylight and skylights, borrowed light into the existing gym, as well as preserving those windows in the views from the lounge area in front of the community room into the library. And then lower volume that wraps around that high bay, and then a special kind of reading room that would be facing out towards the Concord Road, excuse me. Just the view, if you're driving up Concord, looking back, just these kind of light glassy pavilions with the landscape topography wrapping around the library space. The new entry, just kind of a close-up of that.
This is that view from the service point, which you're seeing right in front of you. Looking back towards this is the remote service point, looking back towards the entry and the northern primary service point of the library. That lower volume to the right, and actually it's to the left of the viewer in this as well, is perfect for adding acoustic control to the children's area to the right, and what would be viewers left just out of the picture, the teen area here. Then in the next slide, if you move to the primary service point and looked back down the length of the library, you'd see the general collection to your right, those lounge seats and the primary circulation right in the center here, the children's area to the left, and beyond towards the end, on the center, the teen area, and in the left towards the end, that study and lounge area. It's kind of punctuated with small meeting rooms. Clear stories, once again, are being used to really create a nice sense of a reading room and bring light into, natural light into the center of the addition.
Yeah, you can kind of sense how the landscape might wrap around the addition as kind of an inclined garden. Go to the next image. So option 4, which is the recreation addition. Keep going. And in this particular plan, we're dedicating the lower level of the building to community recreation and community gathering functions. There'd be the community meeting rooms, at the main level of the 1948 edition, and then a locker support zone and circulation connection back to a gymnasium and group exercise rooms that would be all part of an addition. In this particular option, then the library is up on the second floor, and it takes advantage of utilizing what is now the existing gymnasium space.
So you would arrive via the elevator or the north stair and see the service point right there. Entry would also be optional from the primary monumental stair or in other ways. There's a little bit of a control issue there, but probably solvable. And then the workroom is along that west facade towards the north. And from that service point, you would be looking up to your left towards the children's area. There's stairs going up into that. If you remember, there's, I believe, a 28-inch grade change, which requires those stairs and then a ramp that would get you up there. If you looked a little more to the southeast, which would be your right, you'd see the teens and then the fiction collection. This solution and the size of the spaces really causes us to split the primary collection into fiction and nonfiction. So up beyond the children's area is one of those, the nonfiction with a secondary service point up there. And then the fiction stays with the popular materials and the teens in the existing gym. We would imagine being able to retain the proscenium, but we would feel pretty strong pressure to lower the floor rather than keeping the stage level floor just because of accessibility issues. There is a secondary little stair and ramp in the northeast corner of that gym space that helps to connect the two.
I think the other aspect of modification would be the desire to really open up the corridor along the east side, so we maximize views into the library. So the corridor, historic corridor, would be modified. Okay. This is just indicating the massing of the recreation addition. A little kind of a view from Concord of that. The entry, which we've kind of seen, it's pretty typical.
So here, this is the view from pretty close to the service point and shows that rise in grade. And it's partly what drove us to put the children's area to the upper left so that there is some sense of visibility. We don't have too large furnishings blocking the view from the primary service point into the north addition. And then you can see the degree to which we've dematerialized the wall of the gym and in fact the walls of the classrooms in the north addition to really make this start to function. So it's probably one of the more extreme interventions into the existing building in the sense of modifying or removing walls and exposing structure. Next image is from that children's area. You're looking towards the gym really, so you can see the ramp down to the gym and that fiction collection, popular materials down there. And this is in the children's area itself. To the right edge of the image is where the service point is.
And then the gym addition would be part of this project as well. The last two that are going to be talked about, and there's a question that came up, actually, it's a good one. It's probably a little more detailed than we're at right now, but it has to do with the acoustical isolation between the library and the gymnasium. That would have to be carefully considered. Certainly double glazing, exterior type of glazing, and protective impact glass. These are things that are workable. They can be addressed, just like, you know, some of the acoustical considerations too, between floor levels will need to be carefully considered. But certainly some options are challenged with that more than others. So the last two variations are really no addition. We kept these at a fairly diagrammatic level. This assumes at the lower level that it would be the community center functions. And at this, because of the limitation of staying within the existing footprint, there would not be any gymnasium space. And that could be construed even as a fatal flaw for Parks and Recreation. I know that's a very important program element for them to have. There might be some smaller recreation area that would be underneath the existing gym. And the existing gym, as we just saw in the prior option, would be on the second floor. That whole floor really converted to the library. So we just kind of reviewed that layout and footprint. Nothing would be really different between option 4 library layout in this version. The next variation on option 5 is if we put the library at the lower level. Obviously some real constraints vertically in terms of not having the kind of volume and spatial quality that you would associate with a library and a reading room. Kind of a more of a Z-shaped layout. So, you know, even a more kind of spread out library. Plus, we got, in this case, some very challenging acoustical considerations of having the existing gym space be retained. That upper level would become Parks and Recreation functions, but you would have the gym above the library, which would be particularly challenging in this scenario. But for the Parks and Recreation, they would get kind of a blend of some community meeting space as well as the recreation and group exercise rooms. In this scenario, the library is severely compromised. So that's kind of our overview. I think Jennifer was going to just share the area kind of summary between these options.
Yeah, so this is a little bit more updated than what you saw last week. In the past week, we made sure that our areas are consistent with our cost estimate and just kind of did that final review. So this does replace those numbers. And then we also, so you can see the grand totals down at the bottom for each scheme. That combines all the spaces shown. Some of the NCPRD spaces are a little less than program would like. Some are about right on. Library stays consistent at 19,500. And then we also showed the assumed parking number below that adjusted slightly. But this gives you a good picture of the grand total of space. Obviously the most with the freestanding schemes and the least with the no addition schemes. And then correlating with that, we have gone through cost estimating effort. Understand that we're at a very high level. We are looking at really basic costs per square foot numbers for renovation, for new building. And so we're looking at the massing, the exterior envelope, what kind of structural systems we might think of. We've worked with all our consultants to just give input on those things, as well as utilities and excavation, landscape, And then it builds in as well the contingencies for unknown things at this stage. So very, very high level. And then what we're speaking to in the costs that we're showing are the direct construction costs. And here you can see listed what those things are that are associated with direct construction costs. Typically, those costs are around 70% of your total project costs. And they do include all those contingencies and contractor markups as part of that. The indirect costs, which we are not reflecting, are costs brought on as developing the project, and they're all the things listed in here, and they also include contingencies as part of that. But those often will represent about 30% or even more of the total development cost. So with the schemes we're looking at, these represent the direct construction costs. And obviously you can see there's quite a wide variation in what we're looking at in terms of those direct costs. Obviously options 1A and 1B are the most expensive. You're paying for a freestanding building, which means you've got more exterior envelope. You have more excavation and site work, more parking, and you don't have that relationship of everything being in one building. Option 2, 3, and 4, they also have some new construction because they've got additions. Option 2 is the largest of the additions, therefore represents the higher cost of the 3. And it also includes, an additional gym, mechanical space, gym storage, as well as the library addition. Option 3 does not include the any gym addition, and the library space is more expensive to build than the gym space because you have much more involved space that has more components than a large open space such as a large gym. So you have a higher construction cost for new on that. And then the last 2 options, obviously we have no new construction, so the cost of the renovated space is less than new construction, but we aren't fully meeting the program for either scheme. So this really represents the range of what we're looking at this level. As part of this process, when we move on, we'll be doing another cost estimate that will have more information into it. And so as we described before, the further we get into the process, the more unknowns are understood and the closer the costs come to understanding what the building will be.
So this next section, kind of final section here, is really about project characteristics. I know you all have this as a hard copy, so we're not going to walk through this in any great detail, but we have tried to take a look at what we see as being opportunities and challenges, really kind of dissect each of these options and scenarios. This is based upon input from Kim Ballard from an operational perspective, Kurt Lango, Ray from the library operations, ourselves from the architectural point of view. And so, obviously one of the big challenges in option 1A is just the service road that separates the library from the community center, and the fact that the large meeting room is separated, and of course the high construction costs. We can go to the next one. Just realizing we just want to make sure we have enough time for your comments. Option 1B, very similar. One of the challenges here is perhaps, the weight of being able to see the unobstructed facade of the Concord School. This library, freestanding library, does block part of that view. Also, the parking is kind of more distributed and kind of pulled away, so it's not as central. You can imagine going to the community center, you might be parking quite a distance, so it doesn't have the convenient parking that even option 1A had. And obviously in the 1 options, the park amenities are quite limited. In option 2, the park amenities are much greater. I really all the major park elements are there, although the amount of park open space is a little bit less than you're going to find in option 3 and 4 and 5. It does have a distinct library identity in parallel with the Concord School, kind of a clear separation between the two, the addition and the Concord School. It also, you know, in terms of the balance of finding that mix of meeting the needs of NCPRD, meeting the library needs, and meeting the idea of having open space and park. This does a good job of that, as well as having the parking very central and easily accessible to all the building components. The library addition to the east has just a different character to it. As we were kind of mentioning, a little more introverted versus the more extroverted North Addition library. This one doesn't have the gym addition, so a little more of a compromise from NCPRD perspective. Go to the next. This is the gym addition and recreation addition. This has the library located in the second floor of the Concord School. So it has the least amount of identity of the library. The prior option had a pretty good identity from Concord Road. This one's internalized and then has some operational and functional compromises to how the library lays out. And then we have options 5, which we kind of really talked about. The one thing I didn't mention, well, in option 5A, we're losing a lot of the recreation gym space. There is no gym. And then 5B, library compromise plus we don't fit in the NCPRD offices. I didn't mention that previously, but that is another compromise for NCPRD offices. So that's our presentation. I think that still leaves hopefully a little bit of time for discussion and just questions with Allison and Catherine.
I think at this point, thanks, Jim. I think at this point we have a couple comments in the chat, but Catherine needs to give an overview of next steps, and we also want to be sure that we get to public comment. So I think we will hold on questions and comments from the group, although I can see from some of the comments in the chat that folks are already percolating and thinking about their favorites, but maybe Catherine, if you want to share a little bit about the next steps coming up.
Sure. So let me make sure this is big. So this is a little bit different than what's on the bottom of your agenda, but I'm trying to keep all of the meetings outlined on your agenda. So I'm going to just roll through these so that you can see where we're headed. We've got Q&A for the next 2 meetings almost exclusively, so we're really excited about that. I have received some Q&A so far, and what we're doing is putting them into various buckets so that we can efficiently answer them. So thank you for sending them in, and I got a feeling I'm going to get a lot more questions after tonight. So those are the next 2 weeks. On the 18th, we are going to do a draft evaluation of the criteria. And then this is the thing I wanted to highlight is on July 2nd. We met with the chair and the vice chair, thanks Dennis and Doug. And we had talked last time briefly about the potential for making a recommendation, the task force making a recommendation to the board for the Oak Lodge Library to be located on the Concord property. This is part of our agreement with Gladstone, Clackamas County agreement with Gladstone. I know some of you are new to the task force and might not be as familiar with this. I'm happy to answer questions one-on-one if you want, but we felt like this was a really good time to do this work. And because you would be doing all of the criteria evaluation the week prior, and then you would be narrowing down to 3 alternatives. And then it seemed reasonable to think if you were narrowing alternatives down to the public, you would be able to make a recommendation to the board about whether or not it's feasible for the Oak Lodge Library to be on the Concord property. So that was the main thing I wanted to say tonight. That, and then it would also go to the board for consideration in July. Keep us on schedule. I'm a project manager, so we like to stay on schedule. August is would be mostly public input, and then final evaluation criteria, where you would also bring in not only your own discussions and criteria that you had determined earlier, but also the recommendation to the board. And then the final evaluation would happen and refinement of the, oops, it looks like I copied that twice there, sorry. But the refinement of the preferred alternative would happen in September and October, and then a recommendation of preferred alternative to the board. So just wanted to lay that out there. If you have questions, let me know. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now.
I guess any process-oriented questions about the upcoming meetings? Oh, I lost my screen. There we go. Oh, Grover, I do see your hand. Go right ahead.
Okay, so in the process, the go, no go is really a choice of the Oak Lodge, Clackamas Library Board of Trustees, yes? Or is it the whole task force? That's my first question.
It's the whole task force.
So the task force will determine for the library whether the Oak Lodge Library, whether we will be on the Concord property or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the way we've been talking about it when we laid it out from the beginning, yeah.
Well, then I haven't been tracking, and I guess I don't have any more questions at this time because I need to talk to some other people.
So that sounds like that may be an additional follow-up conversation.
Sure, happy to do that.
Okay, Doug, are you okay if we roll into public comment? You're muted, but I'm seeing your nodding head.
Absolutely.
Great. Also, welcome, Laura. I know you're at a budget meeting, so glad that you're able to join us. Hello. And I know Commissioner Savis has also been listening in post-budget meeting, so welcome, Commissioner Savis. And I'd like to pass it to the Commissioner, but I also want to see if there's anybody who's been observing our meeting who would like to give public comment this evening. If you would, feel free to raise your hand. You can do that by hovering over your name in the participants box and raising your hand. Or if you're calling in on your phone, you can press *9. And maybe while we wait for some hands to see if anybody is wanting to give public comments, Commissioner Savis, oh, it looks like we do have a hand. Okay, so Elizabeth, I see your hand. I'm going to allow you to talk. We usually give about 3 minutes for public comment, and then Commissioner, you're up next. So Elizabeth, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go right ahead. Looks like
excellent.
Here we are. Hello.
Thank you. It took me a second to figure it out. I think it was option 4 that had the old gym with the stage disappearing. And I was really disappointed in that one because I am part of the community theater group in Milwaukee, and we really, really, really want a performing space in the neighborhood. That's all.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, maybe just I can see your name, but for the record, would you mind saying who you are?
I'm so sorry. Elizabeth Goebel, and I am the managing director of New Century Players Community Theater.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for your comment this evening. We look forward to seeing you at upcoming meetings.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks. Take care. I don't see any other hands. So Commissioner Savas, I'm just going to unmute you if you'd like to say a few words.
Sure. Just want to say again, I say thank you. I appreciate everyone's participation in this. We're at an exciting juncture, it looks like. And I just joined in a little bit ago and I saw the cost projections is about all I saw. So I really enjoy and listen carefully to all of your comments about the options going forward, and just want to encourage you to continue on and want to hear what the community has to say. So that's all I have. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Commissioner, and thanks for joining us. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Doug.
Well, okay. I guess we're wrapping up at this point. Pretty much, we'll see each other again next week. This has gotten to be a Thursday tradition of sorts. I don't think we've got anything else to go.
I do see one hand. It looks like Ron Campbell has his hand up. Sorry, Doug.
Oh, Ron, yes.
Ron, go right ahead.
I raised a question by email today, and I'm not sure if you have an answer to it yet, but I'm curious to know what the timing will be of the traffic study that will fine-tune the off-street parking needs of these alternatives.
Catherine, are you going to take that one?
I'm looking at Jennifer, actually.
No. I'm trying to unmute. I was not unmuting. Yeah, either one of us. Yeah, we are starting conversations with Clackamas County, and we have talked about doing a parking study so we can make sure that we have the right plan moving ahead. So we are in conversations right now. We would love to get something together by the end of next month. Some of it's out of our hands in terms of schedule, but we are talking about doing that right now. So I don't know if Catherine has anything else to add to that, but.
Well, I think it's just important to note that there are a huge array of questions that we still need to answer regarding whichever schemes we move forward from. I know that parking is a big one, zoning is a big one. There are lots of them. So what we have to do now is make our best educated assumptions, and then we will need to adjust accordingly as we learn more. But I do think that I think the assumptions that the team has made regarding parking are really strong, and we're really hopeful that the county will support the assumptions.
Well, and of course, you know where I'm going with this. That factors right into the amount of contiguous open park space that will be that residual space after all the infrastructure is built. And so, that's quite a big factor in looking at the implications of each alternative. So another related question I had to that was, do you have any idea what the margin of error is relative to the estimates that are out there now?
You mean the cost estimates?
Parking estimates.
Parking estimates.
Parking estimates,
Actually, I'm wondering if we can kind of table. I think this might be part of a larger conversation. Yeah. And I'm also seeing, and I want to be sure that we give this enough time, because I think, Ron, you raised some great points that these do have to do with the whole piece of the puzzle. So Ron, if you're okay, I know that you emailed that question, but if we can hold that and have that be part of our two-part Q&A session. I'm also seeing some questions in the chat that are coming in from Jan and Kim about overall budget and budget considerations. And I also see a hand up from Grover, which I'm not sure if that was from before or if you have something. No, you have something additional to say? I can lower it, or you have something to say?
Something to say.
Okay, go for it. So I want Grover to be able to say something before we wrap up as well. So Ron, hold that thought. Let's give some time to parking in our next session. Thank you.
Good enough.
Grover, go ahead.
Okay, good. So my biggest thing is the same that those chat rooms, which I'm not tracking, is I did some rough numbers on here, and in option 1A, it's using the plus 30%. We're talking $568 a square foot. I don't know how you distinguish between retro and this and that, which leads me to the question, I don't know, we've talked about how much of the cost is making the existing school safe. And then I want to make it, is that safe for occupation, or is it safe that it would survive as a community center if we had a earthquake and we could be there? So those are all numbers that are missing. And then lastly, that we could make any choice about what's going forward until we address where's the money coming from. Because, you know, hey, I think I'll take 1A and B both. Okay, so you know what the heck. So the big bucks doesn't concern me. Oh, well, wait a minute, who's paying? That's the part we need to get in here. I don't want answers now, but I want to be able to address those in our questions, not just, well, I like this and I don't like that. I want to get into the practical. That's what I want to get to. But the part about the earthquake stuff and what kind of standards it will meet and the costs and the division of, because I did all those maths based on, and okay, well, if it's 19,500 of library, then I know what share percentage is the library, so I can look at what the library cost is, and those are pretty reasonable numbers. Not one of them is over $8.5 million for, I didn't add the 30% to that. I apologize, I did that later. But anyway, even if you add 30% to that, those are the kind of numbers I've been talking about all along. We're short 10 million bucks. I'm done. Thank you.
So I think we can assume that that yes, but talking about the numbers and those those last few slides that had to do with cost projections will certainly be a part of our conversation next time. And I think we're hoping that it's framed much more on like, let's understand what's feasible here and what's possible. And I think Grover, instead of just the I like this or the beauty parts of it, kind of really drilling into those details. So please do email your comments. We'll take the comments and questions that have been, email your questions. We'll take the comments and questions noted in the evening in tonight's meeting, and some of the things that have been posted in the chat, and take all those into our next two sessions. So thank you. Okay, Doug, back over to you. I don't see any other hands.
I guess it's my job to say have a good evening and see you all next week. Look forward to diving in and getting some questions answered and really kind of exploring things further and getting to hear what everybody else here has to say. So I will see you all then. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.